Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back to Take Two.
Yes, it was bizarre, but we got stifled, and so we had to do a banishing ritual to get rid of the tall gray alien. And for those of you that are new to the channel, you're saying, "What the heck did they just say?"
It's true.
It's par for the course. So it changed the way that we're going to do this. I just basically had mentioned some in the first take about some of the discussions going on that blast off the Florida coast. And yeah, our family member Trina down there in Florida. Hey, Trina. She's been with us for years. She was saying it's pretty much right off my coast in Palm Coast. And I used to live in Palm Coast too. And I think Florida Marquis, Maquis, I should say, there's no R, is in Palm Coast as well. So, what was this is basically the big question. And, again, we have gotten that this was a case of, well, you could look at it as divine intervention in a sense, or intervention by higher forces. As, this was most definitely something that could have been a very, very negative event.
Well, it could have, and that information trickled in after other information came in. And strangely enough, when I channel information, it's not, I don't look for logic as far as who did what, why, and when. The information's just deposited in my head and then it comes out my mouth. So that definitely is what happened. And I want to say a huge thank you for all you silent warriors out there who have been working to manifest a kinder, gentler timeline, because these are times we have to move through, but they don't necessarily need to be so dramatic and traumatic.
Yeah, as we shared on that other video too, this technology is out there. In World War II, the alternative to Hiroshima and Nagasaki was developing exactly this type of technology to be used as a weapon, a tsunami bomb. That's what they were working on. There's declassified documents from the U.S. military that they were working on this. They tested things out using regular conventional ordinances, and even the thought was out there of unconventional ordinances to create basically a tsunami that would have Japan say, okay, we finally give. That's it. Now, as I said before, there are certain people that have said that this would be the area that they would target for maximum impact. Others have said, well, why not farther up the coast? That could be too. This is just what came out. And that's really curious that this area was mentioned going back a couple of years ago, even as a possible area where they would use this type of technology. And as we said, Russia has come straight out and said again that they too have worked on this technology. And in specific, this point in Cascadia, there was information that came out about Russian subs off of Cascadia and what were they doing there. And I know there's a lot of people that don't believe it's really Russia. And as we were saying in the other video, and this is part of why probably the other video got stifled, sure, the countries are not the ultimate power, and there's powers that be, DS, however you want to look at it, CABAL, the word that starts with an I, ends with an I, the S's, the secret, you guys know what we're talking about here, that really run the show through the INCs, period. The power structure is such that there's puppet masters at the very top moving everything, all these pieces into play. Even the kings and queens on the chessboard are being moved by somebody.
Yep.
So recognizing that, yet still, WW1, WW2 happened. They did happen. I had family members that experienced that I talked to, and they remembered it. And it's sad that this world, we can't trust anything that's in print. We can't trust anything even less that's not in print, because it can be altered and changed so quickly from generation to generation. But when you talk to family members that lived it, then they experienced it firsthand themselves, or at least they believe they experienced it firsthand themselves. If we look to the movie Dark City, where everybody gets reprogrammed every night, that's an interesting one too. But it's interesting to see this, and there were a lot of great statements and comments coming out about the power. This is a 3.9 is what they're showing. The United States Geological Downgrading Service tends to downgrade things. So, was it really a 3.9? Was it a 4.0, 4.5? Who knows? We don't really know. But, going on the fact that it's somewhere in this range, well, how strong is that? We've heard of all these different types of bombs in production, as you see this talking about a 30,000 pound bomb that could be used against nuclear facilities, and it boggles the mind. There's certain types of bombs out there that are designed to not explode on impact, but to burrow down hundreds of feet and then explode. And they could have a big impact. So we don't know. Also, we don't know if this was in the sea floor. Mm-hmm. We don't know if this was, where this was. Was this an explosion on top? Was it an explosion in the middle? We don't know where this was exploded. But I had mentioned Zarabamba in comments, because Zarabamba is enormous. It weighed 59,525 pounds, 26 feet in length, 6.9 feet in diameter. It is, if you could see this over here, you can see how big this cloud is compared to some others. That little tiny circle, if you blow it up, there you see Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 15,000 plus times power of Hiroshima. That's massive power. That's the strongest one that was ever tested. Well, a 3.9 quake, if we look over here, earthquake equivalent to Hiroshima, a 3.9 is equal to 712 micro Hiroshima atomic bombs. So that's a pretty big, energy output to look at it. And again, the thing is, my question is, was this an NUKE that actually exploded, or some sort of new technology? And then that gets you into thinking about, well, you guys remember that blast in Beirut that was insane. Well, that was pretty damn big, because if we look at the weapon yield, and we're looking at it, you see Hellfire missiles, and then you see Tomahawks. We look at the power of the Oklahoma bombing back in 95, Chernobyl, and you keep going down. Now that's the Moab, mother of all bombs, right? And we keep going down and down, and it's talking about certain explosions and certain chemical factories that we've seen. And then we see the power of the Beirut blast. It was pretty damn massive. There are treaties that we don't know about, typically on Earth, that involve beings that are not human. Some are, and some aren't. And there's most definitely, we've seen an admission from our officials at the highest places, and like Luis Elizondo, he was the former director of the military's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. And he says, straight out, some of the UAPs, UFOs, they're extraterrestrial. And others are extra-dimensional, interdimensional. There's your disclosure. We've gotten disclosure. It's already out there. They admit it. Now, we don't know what the treaties are. So there might be a certain yield that would allow the people like the Galactic Federation to directly intervene and say, nope, we're stopping this. Mm-hmm. And by the way, you see this. Aliens like our nukes. Well, do they, or do they dislike them? And they're keeping an eye on them. Former Intel official admits claiming that UFOs interfered with U.S. atomic capabilities. Yeah, we've heard of them shutting off entire systems to let us know they're not going to allow certain things to happen. And is that exactly what we just saw here? Well, that's basically what we've gotten from the connection that we have with the Galactic Federation Palladian High Council.
Right. That's exactly what trickled in after I was trying to get information. Because my body, when I look at something or observe something, my whole body pushes for information. And I could feel immediately that there was some kind of a cloak where information wasn't coming through, but through the galactics, I did get that little bit of information. So it is somewhat exhausting, especially when I'm looking for information and there's something pushing back. It's kind of a weird dynamic that goes on. But yeah, this is exactly what we have going on here.
And the powers that be don't want you to know that.
No.
So, that's part of what we do have going on here. This was something that was averted. It could be that it was just something that was in position to be used at a different time, or who knows, maybe it was going to be used at this particular time, but it was taken out, so neutralized. And so that's obviously a good thing. And as we said, there's certain thresholds which could lead to intervention. And hence, that's why we saw in the last couple of years this push. Like if you look at START Treaty and other treaties, they were limiting the lower. There was a certain power that things had to be at or above, but not lower, because the lower yield in UKESs, from what I'm getting, they might fly underneath these certain galactic interdimensional treaties. And so they could actually be used without causing interference from powers like the Galactic Federation. And I know some of you out there that might be listening to this for the first time are like, just like, okay, these guys are crazy. Well, this is just going to be out there in the open in just a handful more years. It'll be totally out there. And not only that, but people will be seeing representatives. You're going to be seeing beings that are not human, out there in the open in the not too far future.
Yeah, and just take a look at society, for anyone who is new, listening to us for the first time. You can't make sense of anything until you put it together the way we have. Then things start to make sense and they start to add up.
And recognize that there's star seeds, what we would call star seeds, that there's light workers on this planet that have basically been part of the Galactic Federation when they're not in this body in what we would say is past lives. And so, are working here from the inside, so to speak, to help with the transition period. So interesting stuff. And we also see a lot of trickle disclosure about our sciences, which have been, for the most part, hiding stuff from us. The Earth tipped over 84 million years ago and then corrected itself, a new study claims. And their research scientists analyzed paleomagnetic lava as well as ancient limestone they discovered in Italy. The analysis showed the Earth's crust moved about 3 degrees every million years. The Earth tipped over to its one side 84 million years ago, according to results of their study published this 15th of June in the journal Nature. And it tilted 12 degrees between 86 and 79 million years ago. This change moved New York City to Tampa, Florida, relatively, so to speak. That's huge. And they talk about mantle plumes located from the outer core towards the Earth's crust could have triggered the changes. Another hypothesis says the tilt may have been prompted by the shifting of tectonic plates, which scientists say started around 84 million years ago, and it could have altered the balance of the planet. And they were really surprised to see that it actually righted itself. They did not expect this. Well, this is, again, more admission of the changes and how fast they can come upon the planet. All you have to do is look to the Hawaiian Islands, basically, for evidence. This is Bloom. This is the Hawaiian Islands. And we'll have a shift again in the very near future, relatively. It might still be a couple decades away or so, but you see right here, the way these islands are made, it's a mantle plume that's spewing the lava up from the core, and that shows that you have, I would say, 110-degree change here. It's a little bit more dramatic than degrees. So the thing that really could have caused this is the shifting of the crust. The crust shifted drastically, and here we go, big shift, and that will more than likely happen again. Now, about timelines, that's something interesting to look at, because look at the legends of not only the indigenous people of the Americas, but we also look to the Etruscans, who are some of the earlier settlers of the Italian peninsula. The Etruscans are interesting too because their language is not Indo-European. It's pre-Indo-European. So that's really a curious thing as well. Well, they remember a time when the Earth didn't have a moon. And interestingly enough, their legends say that the moon was put in place by two brothers, as do so many other legends. And that gets you thinking about the Sumerians and Enlil and Enki. And then we look to the Younger Dryas event, 11,700, 12,000 years ago. That was a major cataclysmic event that took out so much life on the planet. Well, it really makes you wonder how quickly these events can happen. They also say that at that time frame, according to some of these legends, that's when the moon was put in, after the big event, after the impact, and the moon was put into its place. Well, was it really a natural impact? Or, think about technology. It wouldn't take much for advanced beings to just nudge some asteroids out of their position from the asteroid belt and have them rain down on Earth, as we see all the Carolina bays all over the east coast of the United States and extending into the Midwest. And we know there was a major impact in Greenland. And interesting that the movie Greenland is all about salvation lying underground in Greenland, as that was the whole thrust of the movie, with people going into the Earth itself to avoid another massive cataclysm. Is it natural or artificially flavored? That's up for each to decide. But interestingly enough, we've gotten too from the guides that in this time frame, at some point, the moon is going to be removed, because the moon is basically, when you get down to it, it is a ship of sorts. It is a base of sorts, and it does have a major impact on the Earth and tidal influences. And what's going to happen is things are going to be restored. The Earth's 23.5-degree axial tilt will be gone, and it'll be righted, and we won't have the storms. We won't have all the nasty weather. It'll be more of a Garden of Eden paradise back upon the planet, with reliable, predictable weather patterns when the moon is taking away from the Earth. And science will tell you that life wouldn't exist without the moon here. It regulates things, but again, everything is twisted in the favor of the power brokers. And if we want to go biblical, who rules this planet? Well, it's the adversary. That's what Satan means. It's not just a singular entity with a pitchfork and horns. This is a consortium. This is a group. This is a group that includes humans and non-humans alike.
Right. So when we talk about the moon, when it is not here, we talk about the Earth moving back into balance. Beings, people, animals, everything moves back into balance, and it has a very wonderful symbiotic way. Even the weather all the way around is going to be such that people have longer growing seasons. Everything is just going to turn back the way it was. And, the moon does emit a certain controlling type of frequency. Because as we just think about it, if it can pull tides from where it's at, and our bodies are made up of so much water, think about how it affects us as human beings.
Yeah, exactly. Babies are 80% water or more, and as we age, we dry out a little bit, but still, the percentage is more than 65%, even in the elderly. So yeah, it has a huge effect on us. Think about, again, if you want to go biblically and look deeper, think about where basically God, quote unquote, curses the serpent and has him go about on his belly for the rest of his being, but also curses the planet, makes it so it's tougher to grow things. You're going to have to strive to grow things, work hard to grow things. Life is going to be a struggle. Well, when we switch that and we put in place of God, because again, original translations is Elohim in the plural, which means like the mighty ones, the powerful ones, plural. Then we see, perhaps what we're talking about here is that Younger Dryas event. the axial tilt, 23.5 degrees, which Western astrology ignores, but Vedic astrology takes it into account. And that the fact that now we have the tougher weather, we have all the cataclysms that go on as well, but we'll be going back to a Garden of Eden where things will come much easier and be plentiful and abundant. So it's very interesting when we change that, and if you want to switch that out because, all the wording has been so distorted, and you just put in Enlil, Enki, and the Anunnaki, instead of just the generic Lord or Adonai or Elohim, it's a different picture that we have going on here. And we do have communities along the Gulf Coast reporting damage from Tropical Storm Claudette, which hit the area Saturday morning, spawning some tornadoes. We have Louisiana, we have Alabama, Mississippi under states of emergency. California is as well, but for the drought. And, this is just the beginning of the season. New Orleans already before this storm, and it did impact on Louisiana's coast. Already had 6 times normal rainfall. If we look at the cone, you see this is the area that will be getting impacted by major rainfall. Atlantic could get as much as 4 inches as well. And we have over in Oaxaca, 3 months of rain in two days in Mexico, and that is the typical. Boy, there is some massive flooding in Crimea as well. Just a major state of disaster over there. This is just global that we're seeing this inundation, and then you have the worst drought in 1,200 years now, what the scientists are talking about with the U.S. heat wave and the West. And we know that Lake Mead is basically drying up. Pick your poison. That's really what we're looking at here. Pick your poison. As you have Salt Lake City hitting this 107 degrees. 40 million Americans enduring triple-digit temperatures. Can you imagine if the grid went out? Let's, again, send out positive intentions there, but everybody needs to be prepared as best as you can. And with smart meters now, some Texans found that they woke up, they might have set it to 70, and they wake up and it's 83 because they're being overridden by Big Brother.
I know I wouldn't appreciate that. And I'm sure many of them don't appreciate that, but this is the sign of the times. This is the control we're looking at.
Yeah, and then of course, we could point fingers at, being better prepared by government officials, not just in Texas, but everywhere. As Texas and Florida are getting singled out big time right now, and many of us understand the bigger picture with that. Puerto Rico, 2 major power outages in a week, fueling fear of what's coming next and memories of Hurricane Maria, which at first they said claimed, maybe I think the initial was less than 200 lives. And then it turned out it was like more than 10 times that. And of course, many places in Puerto Rico didn't have power for a year, a full year. Antarctica is suffering near record-breaking winter, 10 degrees Celsius colder than usual, 129.3 degrees Fahrenheit negative. And we have about that positive over in Death Valley. So the extremes, they are getting ever more extreme. And now we have an explosion at a fireworks warehouse in Moscow. Been explosions everywhere. Usually they seem to be hitting power plants and, critical infrastructure. I'm sure that's just a coinky-dink.
Another coinky-dink. It's always all full of them, full of coincidences.
It is. And by the way, Texas is going to be a crypto leader, as is Greg Abbott, the governor. Cryptocurrencies coming to Texas grocery stores. HEB is putting cryptocurrency kiosks into some Texas grocery stores. And, again, the thought here is, if you talk to people in crypto, is that it's outside of the system. It's outside of the control of the big banks. So they view it as good in that sense. But we know ultimately the power brokers, they just desire power. So they don't mind it going digital as long as they control it. They don't want it to be digital with them not controlling.
I know, and that's what I'm kind of smelling, something a little bit strange here with this going on. I know it looks like maybe they're stepping aside and standing on their own, but I don't know. We'll have to see what happens in the future.
Well, what's happening is there's a huge divide that's happening, as we've talked about it. It's pretty obvious. This to me is reminiscent of 1861. We're building towards a climax, and what it is there's this global power structure that it feels that certain states are saying they're not going to be a part of. But recognize that there's powers that be, and there's Trojan horses everywhere. And so, is this rising up against the script, or is this part of the script?
Right.
Because ultimately, what they want is a one world CCP system.
Mm-hmm.
And the US, for instance, has 330 million people that are well armed, so to speak, with over 400 million small arms. In fact, the American population what could outgun China and
Mm-hmm.
Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So that most definitely is something that would deter an outright power grab. And then in a very Machiavellian way, which is exactly the way they do things. And Machiavelli was famous for his book, The Prince, which is all about taking power in a covert form. You could also look at it as, again, it's very Art of War-ish. How do you say eliminate two enemies? Well, why not get them to fight each other?
Mm-hmm.
Or get your enemy to fight itself and then come sweeping in.
Yep.
And so, what I have always gotten is that there is this manufactured push for CIVILWAR here in the USA. And once that's full blown underway, then you would have more of that movie from the 1980s. Remember, Charlie Sheen was in it, Patrick Swayze. Certain color dawn,
Mm-hmm.
then you would have that scenario happening when the country was at its weakest point.
Right.
And initiated in perhaps by exactly what we were originally looking at here. Some sort of event that might look like it's natural. Maybe it looks like La Palma went. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it looks like Cascadia went. You can't really determine for sure what happened. Was it natural? Was it artificially flavored? Maybe we'll never know. But then all that would be kicked off.
Right.
So, looking forward to your comments. What do you guys think? Please do share your thoughts and share the video. Help wake people up, because
Mm-hmm.
the more people we could wake up, the more we could put that intention out there. Again, if 51% of the people on the planet said, "Help Galactic Federation, please come and help us," then the call would be answered. It takes the consensus, because they respect free will.
And it's really important to, when we do ask for help, to accept what comes. It might not come in the perceived manner that you prefer. So we need to also be very allowing in this information that we put out there and receive.
Most definitely. Most definitely. So thank you guys for being part of the family. Make sure you're subscribed to both channels. Thank you for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. And we do want to thank our Patreon people out there, because in these times too, we couldn't make it through these times and keep doing what we do without you guys.
An extra huge thank you to Patreon. We'll have to do something extra special for them, because really, it's true. It's been a tough go, but thank you guys.
Yes, and we're making progress. So we hope to be pretty much in place and being able to focus just on work and no more roundabout by maybe Monday morning.
Yes.
So that's a blessing. Anybody needs to make an appointment, it's EEARTS at Proton Mail or evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com. May you guys be blessed with abundant peace, love, health, and happiness. May you guys be kept safe in these times, and may your intuition grow as the changes are affecting us at a very DNA level. And we are waking up and we are being reassembled into something much, much higher than what we have been for this Kali Yuga. And Cindy's going to give us a couple dings.
God bless and namaste.
Namaste.